All right. Welcome, Adrienne. I'm so excited you're here with me on Promote Yourself to CEO.
Thanks for having me, Rachel.
You and I have gotten to know each other over the last few years, but I'd love to start by having you share with everybody what you do with Seeking Depth and how long you have been in business.
Yeah, gosh, I was thinking about that earlier. So August is going to be 7 years in practice, 5 years as a group practice. So that feels pretty monumental. So you've
Yeah.
been with us, I think, for the half life of our group practice. So that part of the CEO collective has been huge in getting us to where we are. So we specialize, I've taken a lot of your language. Yes, we specialize as the therapist who provides therapy to people who have done therapy and still feel stuck. So we really believe that for folks who struggle with or have experienced relational trauma, that gets reenacted into the therapeutic relationship. So we have different experiential modalities that we use, like psychodrama, somatic experiencing, art, EMDR, where we help to draw attention to those relational dynamics and gently start to unpack those patterns to have a different experience in one's life. So we do that with intensives. We were one of the first practices to bring the 90-minute weekly intensives to the area. And I've realized my role has really shifted and grown since I've been
Yeah.
a practice owner in how to train people in doing an effective 90-minute session, that it's not just filling up time for the sake of filling up time, but we're doing a lot of work that is very intentional in how to communicate that to onboarding therapists. So that's been my past years figuring out the training systems in our practice.
It's been a really interesting journey watching you because I think a lot of therapists think that the next step to growth is starting a group practice. But can you share a little bit about your experience making that transition into building a group practice versus being a solo practitioner?
Yeah, gosh. I think about what even motivated me to do that in the first place. And it's hard to talk about it without also talking about vision and values, because that's the thing that's gotten really clear in the collective is knowing where we're going. Because I had my hand in a lot of different pots. I was doing substance use interventions, I was doing recovery monitoring, I was doing all kinds of things that aren't really in alignment with how we practice now. So originally my thought as a group practice was I've got this wait list and I need good people to refer to for these families that I'm doing substance use interventions for. So it felt like it would be a lot easier than it actually was to just add on a clinician and open up the wait list to it. But it was a really hard process in getting people to trust clinicians who weren't me, being willing to work with someone who might be a little bit newer.
Yeah.
And so as I really think about what my vision is, we joke about it internally. We call it our therapy farm. And it's really this outpatient retreat center for trauma recovery and trauma training. I've really kind of deepened into my role as someone who trains other clinicians into what I think is the most effective trauma therapy practices. So that's kind of shifting into just thinking I would get people off my wait list by having people work for
Yeah.
me. And I've really been embracing my role as someone who supports developing clinicians and helping them really figure out who they are as a provider, practicing newer and more evidence based techniques than what we learn in grad school. And I've just really been embracing this role as a supervisor rather than just a manager and somebody who just assigns you cases, but supports you in being the best you in those therapeutic relationships. So I don't know how well that
Yeah.
answered your
No,
question.
it's
The
perfect.
clarity, getting more and more clear about who we are and what we do. And that's been helpful in making decisions.
I think what you shared is so interesting because a lot of people are at that point that you were, where you have developed a relationship with a lot of different organizations, a lot of different referral partners. You had a huge demand for you, and it seemed like the logical next step was definitely the group practice. But I know over the last few years, we've had some road bumps with navigating all of these things. Can you share some of the challenges that have come up when it comes to you bridging the gap between the thought of, oh, I just need people to come in that I can feed clients to now where you have a clearer vision? What were some of the challenges that popped up that made you evolve now?
Oh, So a lot of it has been really challenging dynamics with team.
Yeah.
And I had this great business plan on paper. And then there was the human factor that I wasn't planning for. So, like my original values, I really wanted to be the safe refuge for therapists who were
Yeah.
such an oppressed group. There is nobody else who's as educated as we are who makes the same amount of money that we do. We're so poorly paid for what is expected of us and within our education and our training. So I wanted to be a safe space, especially as someone who has a neurological disability. I can't work full time the way that I used to be able to. I just wanted a safe, anti ableistic, oppressive culture for people. And I
Yeah.
had that, but I set myself up to be taken advantage of. So I easily created myself as a stepping stone. And people come in, they don't see all the other systems that are at work. They just see
Yes.
that we charge a self pay price where they don't have to worry about insurance and they get licensed and would take their whole caseload with them. And it just wasn't sustainable. If it takes me about a year to stabilize their caseload, I just can't have people turning over that quickly. And I had this thought of loyalty that if I'm treating somebody really well, that would buy their loyalty. They'd want to hang on and stay tight with me. And that just wasn't the case. So having some of these kind of negative experiences allowed me to look at what's not working and what is working and getting really crystal clear about the values that we have for our team. So our values now I really love. The acronym is ART,
Yeah.
ART, authenticity, relationality, and teachability. So we want people who are authentic, who show up in their own vulnerability that we cannot support. We're the ceiling to which our clients can rise. So if we're not willing to be vulnerable with ourselves, then our clients aren't going to be vulnerable either. And we want that extended within the group space as well as a team that we want to be able to be authentic with each other. There's been some history of people being more interested in getting like the pat on the back rather than really growing and expanding their skills.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it. I've been working professionally for 15 years and I still pay somebody for supervision, for my own supervision, right? We never get to the top. There's always something more to uncover and learn. So authenticity, we're going to be our authentic selves. Relationality, is that we're really successful together. And this is not about one person being the star, but we're
Yeah.
motivated to succeed together. We care about each other. And this year's been so much fun. I've been letting my team kind of guide how much they want me involved in their lives. And there's this whole group chat going that they got started. That's the name of it is that I titled it something else. Somebody changed it to therapy farmers. So it just shows like how aligned we are with visions, how much fun we're having together. We just did an art team day where we made mosaic tiles to get cut our own glass and make mosaic. So that feels good to me. I don't want to have a team that is profitable but not a joy to be around. I rather, if I'm paying my bills, I want to have fun with what I'm doing. So that last piece is teachability. I want people who are motivated to learn new things. This is not a good fit for people who come in. They're like, no, I've learned all that I needed to from grad school. I'm just here for you to provide my licensing supervision. So that has been so helpful in us figuring out our decisions, who is a good fit to join our team, how we want to change or revisit any systems that we've got going. One of our newer things is that we interview people as a team now, and that has been so helpful. I've been hesitant to do something like that because historically it's felt like herding cats, like we weren't all on the same page. But these values have allowed us to be on the same page with what it is we're looking for. And the teams responded so well to that. And I think they enjoy being the gatekeeper of who gets to be part of that mental space with them. I don't know how well I'm
I
answering
love
your
that.
question. There's just so much to be explored there. It's
Yeah.
2 years being in the collective, but also remember you and I had a relationship where you courted me through your podcast for a full year. So all that counts too.
I love hearing this from you because, again, I think a lot of times there's this kind of hype around hiring a team, and all you need to do to grow your business is just hire a team and it'll magically all work out. But like you said about your original plan, it looked great on paper. And then you have to navigate the real human element. And that human element requires more than just what looks good on paper. It requires actually you stepping into a new level as a leader and thinking about what that vision is and getting really clear about what your values are. Because without that, yeah, you ended up with a few people who churned out, and it was not fun when those people churned out because they caused a disruption in the business.
A big part of that too is the accountabilities. As
Yeah.
I think about those systems, all my systems keep getting clearer and clearer.
Yep.
But the thing that has been really helpful, you and I have been working on what are appropriate accountabilities for people and how to express those in a way that is clear, feel relevant, and is something that people can take with them. So just a simple having a regular team meeting where we go over what was our average census last month, what was our cancellation rate, what's our utilization, what's the plan for next month, all of that really is making a difference. One of the biggest things I did was when I started including our cancellation costs. And
Yeah.
I think what I did was I just put it in what our cancellation costs were for 2025, and it was $65,000. And there was like just this massive gasp in the room. And immediately people were changing how they were doing cancellations and they were following the policies that we had already put into place, but we didn't have a clear accountability. So helping other people see how the puzzle pieces all fit together to make this bigger picture that feels so intuitive and natural to me. But for
Yeah.
the rest of the team, if they're not in my seat, they just don't get it because they're not in a position to be able to understand
Exactly.
these things. Yeah.
And I think it was really interesting when you made that discovery because I remember you were like, I think I need to work more on marketing. But your income, your intake numbers were still good. They were in
Yeah.
the range that you had been looking for. So it really was being able to, one, know what your goal numbers are for how many new people were reaching out and actually going through the process to become a new patient or a new client. But having the clarity of, okay, this is what the cancellations have looked like. This is how much revenue we've lost because we're not all sticking to the cancellation policy. And showing that to the team, it was amazing when you shared with me like how suddenly they got it and they went from being, oh, I don't want to charge a cancellation fee. They felt bad about enforcing the
Mhm.
policy. And then suddenly they realize, oh no, this is actually hurting the business if we
Right.
can't be more firm with our boundaries around this.
Yeah. Which I quote you often, our clients benefit from us following those policies because if we can't keep our doors open, then we can't see them anyway. So it's all part of the same ecosystem.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things where you now sharing some of this language and some of this framework with the team has made it easier for them to understand what you're asking of them.
Another one of those was retention, because that
Yeah.
was the thing. There was somebody who was practicing in a way that's not in alignment with how I want us to be practicing. She was doing really great work, but she was focused on short term, bless you. She was focused on short term, brief solution or brief therapy. And that's wonderful and that's great. And I needed to go through that experience with her to be clear on what it is that I want us to be doing. And I realized I get so jazzed over the nonverbal and pre-verbal trauma work. And we're not resolving that in a handful of sessions. It can
Yeah.
take a year to 2 years to really develop a secure attachment with your therapist. So if we're really doing deep attachment work, it's going to take longer than a handful of sessions. So through all of this process, it's challenged me to think more critically about how I practice and
Mhm.
standardize my own approach. So through just years of doing intensive work, it's come together this, what I've shared with you, self-triangulation therapy, these different ways that we become triangulated in resilience roles and stress roles, and the different modalities that we use to strengthen these resilient parts of ourselves and to help transform and orient to safety these stress roles within ourselves. And that's been something that the team has been so jazzed to learn. They're also interested in psychodrama, and their enthusiasm has been so reinforcing
Yeah.
for me to focus in on the training objectives, how we implement those, how we show up. We have a skills lab for we meet weekly for group supervision. And one of those is a dedicated skills lab where somebody gets to practice being the therapist and the client. And I get to observe them in real time using skills, and they get to have that hands on feedback for something that they might think that they're using, but could use it in a bit of a different way to have a deeper impact
Yeah.
with their clients. And it's fun. I really enjoy that role.
And I love seeing you share about this because you couldn't do that a few years ago. You couldn't show up for your team and be taking them to the next level with their skills and developing your own real curriculum that you
Yeah.
have created. And it's really hard to do that when you are trying to maintain chaos and keep everybody's calendar full and just handle
Yes.
the basics. So I'm curious for you, putting the 90-day CEO operating system in your business. I've just watched you quarter after quarter get better and see more clarity. What has that done for you in your business over the last year or so? What has having this operating system allowed you to do that you couldn't before?
I keep coming back to the word clarity, but a lot of it is like how I make daily decisions, weekly decisions, monthly decisions. I've got you in my head for literally everything that I do. Honestly, from parenting, the way we structure our household. So we homeschool. So we have vision and values for homeschooling. And that helps us make
I
decisions
love it.
about what curriculum do we focus on? What events do we say yes to? What events do we say no to? I bring it in with my own clients, like clients who are struggling with dating or their own family concerns or whatever it is with what's your vision? If you have your clear vision and values, and don't we do that in therapy anyway? But it's just the
Yeah.
language around it that I feel like I see in systems now. And I don't know if you've ever watched Portlandia. There's a preview of it, and we can pickle that. And so I've got you in my head of like, if we can systematize that. So
Of
document.
course we can.
Of course we can. Taking the time to document all my systems. This is the process we go through when we do this. And it takes more time up front and it saves so much more time on the back end. And it just provides clarity. Oh, this is what I'm expecting of somebody else to do. Oh, this is how,
Yeah.
and it reduces friction within the business. It reduces conflicts, resentment that we could easily breed toward another. We're getting ahead of it by being very clear about what expectations are. So yeah, so the 90-day operating system I have I just so helpful. My process I feel is a little bit different from everyone else's. I don't engage weekly in all the different things. I feel like I get what I need, and then my brain just has to sit with it for a while. So I do the mastermind day with you each quarter. That is so
Yep.
helpful. I come with you with here's all the things that's happening, and we organize it. We put things logically where it makes sense to sequentially address them. And then I've got all that going into the CEO retreat with what really needs my attention right now. And then it's so helpful because even last week, for example, I was covering for our admin, and we usually get maybe 7 inquiries a week. And we got 9 on the 2 days I was covering. So I had some time blocked off that I was hoping to get some CEO stuff done. And I ended up just covering for her. And it's like, but isn't this great? I can switch it. Oh, and another thing. 2 days became available for me to go to the beach this week, leaving Thursday as opposed to Saturday. And I'm just switching up my days. I'm going to go
I love
ahead
that.
and get stuff done next week that I was supposed to get done this week. And I'm going to switch this one around. So it helps me stay organized. One of the biggest things I took from you is the shiny object syndrome. So I've got this whole list. There's a whiteboard in my office at home, all the different things I'm working on. And then I color code. Is this the shiny object? Is this a parking lot idea? And is this something that's in progress right now? So it helps me stay really focused. And I've got my sandbox days. Like I told you, I like to reserve a sandbox day so I can play with my shiny objects because they are shiny. I do enjoy them. And I can make those decisions more clearly about, okay, but there is something that's time sensitive. I know it plays into the rest of my month. I do need to
Yep.
get that done. Do I have time to play with this shiny object? But I feel like my attention is focused. I'm getting stuff done. I'm getting meaningful stuff done. Yeah,
I love
it's
it.
been so impactful to be able to use that.
I love hearing too that because now you have more capacity overall, you understand what needs to happen, you still have more flexibility
Yeah.
than you had before, where you can now decide to leave a couple days early for the beach and know that you're still going to get done the things that need to get done.
Yes. Yes.
I love
Absolutely.
that. What would you share with anybody who was where you were a couple years ago, binge listening to the podcast and not reaching out for some more support? What would you say to Adrienne 2 years ago, who was sitting there wondering if they should say yes to joining us inside of the collective?
Okay, so Adrian 2 years ago had a mixed relationship with Rachel 2 years ago. I really loved what you said, and there were some other inside thoughts that I had. I was thinking about this other day. You were talking about getting a coffee every day, like just treating yourself to a coffee. And I remember being so in the weeds. I'm like, I would love to treat myself to a coffee. I can't treat myself to a coffee. You crazy lady. I don't speak that way to you anymore inside, but I did have some of those inside thoughts. But here's what it was, right? Is I was so in the weeds that I couldn't, you would ask these things like, what's your vision? I'm like, I don't know, to pay my mortgage, Rachel. What more do you want from me? Screw you and your coffee. I want to pay my mortgage. So knowing, I think one of the things would be really helpful for Adrian 2 years ago to know is that it's a long return on investment. I forget whose analogy it is, but they talk about if you were to U-turn a canoe, or if you were to U-turn a sailboat, or if you were to U-turn a cruise ship, like it takes time. And
Yep.
with what I had going on, it wasn't like U-turning a canoe, it was U-turning a much larger ship. And I expected when I first met you, I just expected you were going to give me this magic answer where all my clients were hanging out. So I could tap into that honey hole and all of a sudden just have a wealth of people coming in. But it was really about changing the structure and
Yeah.
systems so that we could be sustainable. You say that in your intro, but I didn't really understand it until I
Yeah.
lived it. So just knowing the CEO Collective is a year long for a reason. That's the return on investment. You can't make a couple of changes and just expect it's all going to be over. You really have to allow that time to get that full ROI. So I think that's something that was important. Was just be patient and be
Yeah.
patient and put these things into place. I struggled at first because there were things that I do. I'd meet with Amber, I'd meet with a mentor, and I'd tell them everything I was doing. And they would give me this positive reinforcement about, oh, you're doing all this great stuff. You just kind of need to let it simmer and hang out and just wait for that return. Right. But no, I did that thing. So now I'm ready for what's the next thing that I do. But it really truly is that 6 months, a year to see
Yeah.
something change.
It's interesting because I love the analogy you just shared around turning the ship versus turning the canoe, because if you try to change too much too fast, you're going to capsize the boat, right?
Mhm.
And you're like me. This is your livelihood. This isn't just a hobby or a side hustle. This is how you
Right.
pay your bills and it's your family's livelihood.
Yeah.
And I think this is something I'm so acutely aware of because it's easy to want to jump in and change a lot of things all at once. But
Right.
I often find that if we change too much too fast, then we don't know what's actually working. It's easier and more strategic to get in there and be like, okay, here's the first things we can work on. Let's get
Yeah.
some results. And then we go in and tweak a few more things. And that's why the 90-day rhythm I find is so helpful because it lets me watch everybody and give thoughts and feedback as to where I see the highest leverage points are so that you do get those results without capsizing everything. Because I don't want
Yeah.
you like barely keeping your head above water because we made too many changes too fast.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like that's where I am in my business right now, that I can get more in the granular of like there's newer metrics that I've started tracking, like utilization's one that I started tracking. And I kind of have this inner critic voice that pops up this, oh, you're just now tracking this. I was like, but you know what? I wouldn't have known to have tracked, or if I had
Yeah.
been tracking it, I wouldn't have known the story it was telling me. So more things are being revealed, things that I wanted 2 years ago to be revealed. I'm finally in the place where they're being revealed. So it gives me a greater sense of control. Even like this is a tough time because April's such a great month. And then May, June, July starts to slow down. So I get kind of hesitant of celebrating successes. I'm like, "Well, I don't know. I could go out of business next month." But I'm feeling so much more confident in it, this, as you always say, and I literally quoted it in 2 sessions yesterday, is that we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. And so that's where I'm feeling safe right now, is that I've got
Yeah.
systems that I believe will hold me, even if something catastrophic will happen. And things catastrophic did happen in an 18-month period. We had 4 people leave. My dad died. One of my clinicians had a personal crisis happen. So, like, we
Yeah.
did have catastrophe happen, and we're still here.
Yeah. And you're still here and you know your business better than I think you've ever known it. You
Yeah.
really understand the inner workings of it. And I think just watching the confidence you've built because
Mhm.
now you really understand what is doing what and you can see ahead because you are tracking these things and having these conversations. I can see how much more confident you are in your skills as the CEO. You're already an amazing therapist and a very skilled therapist. We knew that from the get go. But you really owning your role as CEO now has been really amazing to watch in the last couple years to see you become more confident.
Thank you. I know it sounds cheesy, and I know I'm a guest on this particular podcast. And seriously, I really do genuinely feel that this is a result of the work that you and I have been
Yeah.
doing together. It has been so impactful.
I'm so glad. Thank you so much for joining me today. So many nuggets that you shared with everyone. And I especially hope anybody who is sitting there listening to you share about your experience in the collective understands that this is a process that takes time. It's not the sexiest process sometimes to talk about systems and getting things organized, but having that clarity is such a game changer. And it's so exciting now because I feel like your foundation is so strong now. You're setting up Seeking Depth to Recovery to really become an amazing place for more therapists to come and learn from you. And now you've built this whole nother next level that we are working towards. It's very exciting to watch unfold.
Yeah, I'm having fun with it as I really consider why I do any of this. I think I told you I changed our mission statement. Is
Yep.
to enjoy our time on earth and meaningful relationships, and that's what we're doing.
I love that. I'm just so glad that we've gotten to know each other. And I'm so glad I've been able to support you and the collective has been there for you. And I cannot wait to see what's next.
Thanks, me too.